host for your best reads and finest teas. My name is Jamie, and every week I talk about 4 to 5 books that are on my to-be read list and a certain tea that will help you feel better about yourself. If you have not already done so, please like and subscribe and press the notifications, because every week I will be here giving you the best reviews from my latest to-be read section. This week it is Hibiscus Tea. We are going to be talking a little bit about hibiscus and what benefits it can do for you, and not only that, but there is also something else I have learned about hibiscus tea that a lot of people may not know about. So hibiscus tea comes with a lot of antioxidants, so it comes with a lot of vitamin C, and because of that, it reduces the risk of your heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. It doesn't completely eliminate the risk, but it definitely will help reduce it. Because it reduces the risk of heart disease, it also lowers your blood pressure, and it also helps your cholesterol, very similar to how our chamomile tea works as well. And it also apparently aids in losing weight by increasing your metabolism. Just a little side note, I am not a medical professional. This is strictly just for informative purposes. You are more than welcome to try them if you wish, but they may or may not work for a lot of people, and some aspects may work for some. In addition to the regular benefits, there are also some studies, not exactly proven yet scientifically, about certain aspects of drinking hibiscus tea. One of them is that it helps reduces inflammation, which is very similar to what chamomile does for you as well. Some cultures, they use this tea in order to reduce symptoms of either menopause or PMS, which is actually very interesting because that is not really a scientific proven fact, but it is stated to at least help in that department. It's definitely worth looking into, in my opinion, but I don't make scientific discoveries. So there is another fun fact that I learned today about hibiscus tea. Hibiscus tea, and apparently some other teas, I need to figure out which ones do that, does interfere with some medications. So anti-malaria, a Tylenol, blood pressure, and hormonal. Any kind of birth control pill, any kind of high blood pressure pill, it'll actually interact with it and decrease its effects, which I didn't know that some teas did that with medications. That's honestly very new to me. So we're learning things today. So before we get to my first book of the week that I finished, it is currently on loan. I have another person reading it, and hopefully she's enjoying it as much as I did. My first book is To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. Starting off, this is a romance and young adult coming of age type of book. So this is the story of Laura Jean. She never openly admits her crushes. Instead, she writes a letter about how she feels. She sealed it in a box and hid it underneath her bed. So one day she discovers that her entire box has been mailed out. So this causes all types of crushes from many different stages of her past to actually confront her about why they got these letters. So as she learns to deal with it, she actually discovers that it may not have been such a bad thing after all. I absolutely loved it. I am a sucker for young adult romance, mainly because you find things to do, you find things not to do. You can write your letters, you can write all your feelings down, but probably don't put their addresses on them so that they don't accidentally get mailed out. That's just my opinion. This is also a very family-oriented story. She has a very small little family. She has her father. Her mother had passed away either a year or a couple of years after she had her sister. So she's the middle child. She has an older sister and a younger sister. So that's something I can also relate to. But it is very, very family-oriented. They are a very tight-knit family. They try to hang out with one another. Her father is a very busy man, so he does his absolute best. But in the end, her older sister is kind of like the mother of the house after their mother passed away. And it's very interesting to see how much progression happens between her older sister and pretty much between all the sisters. I'm actually very amazed at how well they collaborated together for certain things. And in case you're interested in shows and movies or anything new to watch, this was made into a show on Netflix. I believe it's a show. could be a movie. Do not quote me on that. It could be either one. But considering there are multiple books, I am not surprised if they made it into a series. And the show actually got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is actually very impressive compared to some of the other things that I have here today. It was very, very good. As far as the book goes, it was very, very good. I loved it, and I can't wait to read the rest of them. I only have the second one, and I discovered while reading this that there is the third one after looking a little more into researching it. I am 100% looking forward to continuing the series because I really want to find out what happens, but it probably is not going to be for a while. So moving on from that, I have my second choice that I picked from my Eeny Meeny Miny Mo, and it is Confessions of a Shopoholic by Sophie Kinsella. This book, let me tell you, was something else. I do not expect a lot from books that look like this. I expect books like this to be high drama, a girl who doesn't know what she's doing. This was not like that at all, and it actually shocked me when I started reading a couple of the chapters. So Becky has a fabulous flat in London's trendiest neighborhood, a troupe of glamorous socialite friends, of course. That was when I started getting a little doubtful. And a closet brimming with the season's must-haves. This girl knew how to shop. Only trouble is, she can't afford it. Like the rest of us. Not any of it. Her job at writing in a successful saving magazine not only bores her to tears, but it doesn't pay much at all, which means she really can't afford anything that she's got. Lately, Becky's been being chased by the bank, dealing with dismissal letters from the bank with large red sums that she can't even bear to read. She just ignores it. Oh, I didn't get that. That was one of the things that made me mad in this book. Who ignores a big red 4-digit number? 4-digit number. How do you ignore that? It'd be impossible. It would be really impossible for me to ignore this. She tries cutting back. She does try cutting back a few times, and it just backfires. None of her efforts succeed. Her only compensation is to buy herself something as therapy. Just a little something, which turns into more little somethings. Finally, a story arises that Becky actually does care about, and her front page article catalyzes a chain of events that will transform her life. Pretty much forever, literally. The story deals with a lot of fame because we do reach a point in the book where we're dealing with that. We do deal with a lot of self-help as well in this. There's some business. There's a lot of freaking anxiety going on, at least for me, because if I see a 4-digit number, I'm looking forward to paying it off, but she just ignores it. You don't ignore letters from a bank, honey. So that was giving me stress, which was actually very impressive because we get little banknotes. It's funny because in the book, it shows the banknotes. It shows the letters she's getting from the bank that she's either ignoring or she's reading and just not comprehending. It's hilarious. A lot of it's hilarious because she acts so carefree. It's like, well, let's do this. And then like, oh well. So there's a lot of that. A lot of sophistication with her job. She is actually good at her job. It just takes her a while to figure it out, which is fairly impressive because very few people actually do that. Just getting her perspective, we are getting a little bit of the letters. What is also hilarious is that this was turned into a movie, and I had no idea about this, but then I figured out why I'd never heard of it, because it was horrible. It had received so little on Rotten Tomatoes. It is almost comical. I am almost tempted to watch it to see how bad it is. Overall, the book made me laugh. It gave me anxiety like crazy. I definitely had to take a chill book after reading the story. But it was very sophisticated. She's definitely a character, I'll give you that. I connected with her characters very, very well, and especially in her life. It's not a lot of romance. It does flutter here and there, so it's not drastic. It's just a little bit of it.
So before I continue, where are my Maximum Ride fans?
For those of you who like Maximum Ride, I got the newest one finished. And let me tell you, I was very, very hesitant to read this in the beginning. When I saw this on the shelf, I questioned if I should even get it. But you know what? I am glad I did. Because it was absolutely amazing. It was amazing. So the apocalypse is over. You are welcome to the new world 10 years after Maximum Ride had the last book. This Maximum Ride is about a girl who has a flock. That's what she calls them, her flock. It's a group of 5. So there's herself. She has Fang, which is pretty much like her captain, her backup for whenever things go wrong. You've got Nudge, you've got Iggy, and Gazzy. And you also have Angel. I almost forgot about Angel. Shame on myself. They were all experimented on at a young age to where they now have bird wings. And that is exactly why a lot of them want to get them back. The scientists want to get them back through 7 books of them evading the scientists, bringing in new characters, bringing in new scenarios, having books where they're separated. It goes on and on and on up until the last book where she has to save the world, and she pretty much saves a little bit of it. And this book is where it takes off 10 years later. Hawk doesn't know her real name, she doesn't know who her family is or where they went. The only thing she remembers is that she was told to wait in a specific corner at a specific time until her parents can come back and get her. She has been sitting on the same corner for years for the person who was supposed to come get her to actually come get her. That's kind of sad. It's a little bit sad. She stays under the radar to survive until a destiny that's perilously close to Maximum Ride's forces to her take flight, and someone is coming for her. But this isn't a rescue mission, it's an execution. Story behind this one. It's not fully about Maximum Ride. We actually have 2 perspectives going on. We have Hawk's perspective, which is the front, and the bird is actually a part of the story. That is her companion. And we have Maximum Ride's perspective. So she's kind of disappeared, but we're also figuring out what she's doing at the time, and it's going to correlate into Hawk's story. I absolutely loved how they kept almost everything the same. It's very coordinated with how the Maximum Rides were. A lot of action going on, every other page is a chapter, so it's an easy read. A lot of the same characters in it. There's a lot of the same characters in it. I'm not going to say who because that's going to give away a lot of things. Someone who was very, very scared to read this, who is also a Maximum Ride fan, this came out like it was supposed to be the continuation, like it was the next book. Didn't have a big several year gap in between the last book and this one. So I 100%, if you loved your Maximum Ride, you are gonna like this. Do not be scared to read this. It was very coordinated with how the Maximum Rides were. Little fun fact about our Maximum Ride series over here, turned into a movie as well, and as like Confessions of a Shopoholic, it failed miserably. So many reviews said that the wings didn't look real. Follow the storyline. The characters looked way older than they should have been. They shouldn't have looked like almost all teenage adults. They should have, at least some of them looked like kids, and they didn't. So many people were upset about this that now I understand why that this didn't get popular either, because it wasn't worth anything, and they only stuck to the one movie. They didn't do any more of them, thank God. I am going to warn you with this next one. There are a lot of trigger warnings in this, and I'm about to tell you why. So this next one is The Program by Suzanne Young. This book gave me so much anxiety, I had to stop for a little bit. When I first started reading this book, I was actually reading the audiobook because I was working at the same time. The beginning of the audiobook had a trigger warning beginning. It said, warning, if you cannot, there are a lot of suicidal triggers in this story. If you do not handle that well, this book is not for you, and it's best to skip the series. I've never encountered a book like this. 100%. I've never encountered anything like this. But you know what? It is a very thrilling, anxiety-ridden, powerful story. I knew going into this reasonably what this is about. Sloane knows better not to cry in front of anyone. With suicide now an international pandemic. One outburst could land her in the program. If you broke down in public, if you had an anxiety attack, if you were crying, if you were literally screaming because you just couldn't handle it anymore, you were taken to the program, which is a building that does a treatment for you. Treatment for depression? Okay. So Sloane's parents have already lost one child to suicide. Sloane knows that they do anything to keep her alive, even if that means keeping a very close eye on her. She also knows that everyone who's been through the program returns as a blank slate, which means they do something to your head. They affect part of your emotions of your brain. They do something. Because their depression is gone, but so are their memories. Let me ask you something. If you had the choice to erase everything bad that ever happened to you, would you do it? Even if that meant forgetting important people? I wouldn't. Yeah, I've gone through a lot of depression. I had my suicidal phase. I'll admit, I wouldn't change it for the world because I am the happiest I've ever been. So me personally, I wouldn't get rid of my memories, let alone have them be taken from me. That's the kicker. Is they were taken from you. Like, you really had no choice. If you were in the program, you really had no choice. Your parents were the ones who said everything, and they didn't even know what's going on. So under constant surveillance at home and at school, Sloane puts on a brave face and keeps her feelings buried as deep as she can. What happens when you bury your feelings? You explode. The only person Sloane can be herself with is James, and he has promised to keep them both safe and out of the treatment, and Sloane knows that her love is strong enough to withstand anything. But despite the promises they've made to each other, it is getting harder to hide the truth. They are both growing weaker because their depression is settling in, and the program is coming for them. You know how depressing it is reading that? Here's the thing that started the whole thing for me, why I was so curious to read this book, because it is a very, very interesting dystopian story. My sister introduced this story to me, and I've only now just picked it up, and I feel horrible for waiting this long. As far as the story goes, I'm going to say one thing. I knew going into this that this was going to be a whole cluster. Yeah. And you know what? I was right. This is a very good representation of what the government thinks is best for everybody and what you think is best for you. It's literally a repeating cycle. It's a repeating cycle because you grow up knowing that if you freak out, if you get depressed, if you start thinking bad, if you start getting outbursts, if you yell at your parents, it's a risk. It's literally a memory risk. And the other thing that I knew going into this was when you put that much pressure on a child, when you put that much pressure on a school, multiple schools, because this isn't just one, it's not international, it's just one little corner, but they were thinking of going national. You are going to get more and more kids broken down and more depressed because they are so stressed of fearing that that's going to happen to them, that's what happens. You know, almost everyone at this point knows it. There's very few people who don't know someone who had committed suicide. It is sad. And we do have a few circumstances of certain triggers. One in particular was a little cringy for me, but we made it through. Like I said, if you cannot handle the suicidal portion of this, the series is not for you. If you can handle it and you're like intrigued like the story like I was, it is an awesome read. I read the whole first one in like a day because it intrigued me and literally roped me in so well. I needed to find out what happened to them. But I cried multiple times during this because I was so stressed. I was so upset in the beginning. At least halfway in between, I was so upset. But that's the whole point of a series, is it makes you think. It makes you think of different ways the world could be that we're so thankful that it's not. And this is one of those scenarios where I think that this is absolutely horrific. It is a 7-book series, so it is a little long, but I do have the second one and I do have the 5th, I believe, so I will be continuing this story as well. I'm very glad that I kept this one. I really enjoyed reading this small batch of different series and different perspectives on so many different things. So that is all I have for you guys this week. I loved each and every one of these books. I highly recommend them if you just want a really, really good read. If you like your Maximum Ride series and you feel like continuing the story, 100% read this. If you can handle a major dystopian outlook on this book, 100% request it. If you like your teenage romance, you will definitely 100% like this. That is all I have for you guys this week. I look forward to seeing you next week. Make sure to like and subscribe so that I can continue bringing you guys these videos every week. Love your reads and drink your teas, and I am going to go read some more. Bye!